You are listening to the Gritty Podcast, where we talk about all things gritty. All right, welcome to the Gritty Podcast. I am your host, Brian Call, and on today's episode, I'm down at Wilde Arrow Archery interviewing my friend Cody Jones. Cody has a wealth of experience. He's a great archer. He's been working on bows forever. And I decided to throw a headset on him in the office there and pick his brain a little bit about, you know, as they see a lot of bows come into the shop, and he's been doing archery for a really long time. What are the, a few of those big mistakes that new archers make? So we get into that. We discuss it. If you like what we're doing, check out the description field below on our YouTube videos, where you can find links to all of our partners and all the affiliate codes that we have. And if you're in need of arrows and broadheads, check out Valkyrie Archery. If you use the code GRITTY over there, you're going to save 5 or 10%. And I can't say enough about the system that Brent Hahn has for creating arrows. I use X-Impact arrows made by Black Eagle. I've been using those forever, micro diameter shaft. I use the heavy Jaeger broadhead on the front of 200 grain with the center pin design. I love that setup. So check out Valkyrie Archery and Black Eagle Arrows. Also, the season is almost upon us. If you have some backpack needs, check out Initial Ascent Backpacks, because they are making a killer pack. I have been using it for about 2 years now, and I think it just carries better than almost all the other packs out there when it comes to super heavy loads, which is common for all of us hunters. We end up with some heavy packs when we are successful. So check out that and use the code GRITTY over at Mountain Ops. Right now, you can save with the code GRITTY over there. You can get yourself some Ignite, some Yeti, some of the products I have used forever, Blaze Shots. Whenever I need a little caffeine pick me up, especially out on hunts, I love what Mountain Ops puts out. Been using it forever. So check those things out. Thanks for tuning in. Enjoy the show and stay gritty. All right, folks, welcome to the Gritty Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Call, and today I'm joined by Cody Jones at Wilde Arrow Archery Shop. And Cody and I are going to sit down and we're going to talk about the most common mistake that new archers make when they get into archery, right?
Yes, sir. There's a few of them.
And
very.
We're going to do a number of podcasts. I'm just kind of cornering him in the shop while he's busy working, and I'm just throwing a headset on him. He's just going to answer my questions, right, Cody?
Yes, sir.
This is going to be really fun. All right, Cody, what are the most common mistakes that new archers make when they're getting a bow set up?
Well, like I just did on this bow, put the cam on backwards. I'd say majority of the time, the biggest thing that we see when people come in and they're new is draw length. That's going to be probably number one, would be draw length, because it's a little bit more detailed than people give it credit for, and I just don't think that certain places take the time to really set up the draw length for the individual. You can do a bunch of different things to measure a draw length. There's a bunch of, do this, do that, wingspan, divide it by 2.5, that sort of stuff. But once you get there, you actually have to have that individual draw the bows back. Because shorter axle to axle, longer axle to axle, those are all variables that can really change what that's going to ultimately end up being. I've had people that we measure on the wall, and they'll measure a certain draw length. We get a bow in their hands. They're 1.5 inches different. Broader shoulders, narrower shoulders.
So what's the problem with a draw length like that that's wrong?
Multiple things. Usually if you're too short, you're going to be all cramped up. The pin's going to be super jittery. You're going to get a ton of movement in it. It's going to be hard to slow down your pin movement. You're going to get cramped, really. Honestly, if I was going to lean away, I would lean shorter on draw length if I was to pick one. But the biggest mistake is too long.
Okay. So how does a guy get the right draw length?
So we do the measurement with the 2.5 divided by their wingspan divided by 2.5, right?
Yep.
And then after that, we are putting them in a bow, right? We're going to grab a bow, one of the bows preferably that they're interested in, grab that bow, put it in their hands, and then we're going to look at them at full draw. And we're looking for things like, as they draw the bow, are they making any subtle movements to get to the anchor position we're looking for. Like when they draw the bow, are they creeping into the peep sight? Are they having to like move their shoulders? Are they moving their head and neck into a position that one, just is uncomfortable, and two, it's pretty noticeable to find when they're making these minor corrections. So we're looking for little things like that. We're going to look for shoulder position, head position, neck position, and just kind of go through a couple different draw lengths until we find one that looks the best, which isn't always the right one. Like sometimes I shoot different bows and I might feel like I would have that quote unquote perfect look of a draw length, but it just doesn't aim well for me. You can get into all that and how the bow is going to differ. But
so basically it sounds like a guy would be better off coming to a bow shop and getting professional assistance with the setup.
Yeah, box stores are going to get you close. They're going to they want to kind of get you, and not all of them, not all box stores, and there's some pro shops that just, for some reason, don't want to put in the time. But a lot of it is just to get you in and out, like a real quick in and out kind of thing. That's the biggest problem we see. They just don't want to take the time. They just don't want to take the time to really fine tune. And some of them maybe just don't have the knowledge.
I was at the archery range the other day with my buddy.
Yeah.
I was looking at his bow, and it looked like he was shooting a little kid's bow. He was cramped so much trying to get into the draw.
Right.
And I have buddies who do the opposite, where they're smacking their bow arm with their string because they're overdrawn.
Yep.
And you see this all the time. The bow's just not fitted correctly.
Yeah. Too long. So just like rule of thumb is if it's too long, you're probably going to have some impacts to the forearm, which could also be grip related, but a lot of times it's draw length related as well. And then you're going to see if they're too long, they're going to have just an overextended body posture, and they're going to be deep into their face. They're going to get a bunch of face pressure.
Okay.
And they're going to have a hard time not whacking.
Yeah, so it's important. So let's say a guy gets the draw length right.
Okay.
The next issue you mentioned to me offline about the Peep Site.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about that.
So the Peep Site and draw lengths all kind of they go hand in hand. Peep Site is one of those things where the whole reason we have a peep sight is so that we can repeat our sight picture, so that when we're firing the bow, we're getting this is similar impact.
What do you mean repeat the sight picture?
So when you draw back and you anchor, the whole rear peep sight is to line up with the front sight, right? You're going to try to line up the rear sight with the front sight so that you're getting the same sight picture every time. I'm dropping parts everywhere. So when you do that, you want to be able to repeat that same positioning without a bunch of, like I said, movements and corrections. I want to be able to draw comfortably, anchor typically on your nose, corner of mouth, hand to your jawline.
Okay.
And then have your head posture be as natural as possible, so you're not having to make a bunch of head movements.
So what happens when a guy, what is a common mistake you see then with the peep sight?
A lot of them are too low. Meaning they anchor really, really high up their jawbone. They're taking their whole hand, if they're using the index release, and they're covering their whole ear hole. So the peep sight is going to be really low and really scrunched, so they're not getting the distance or the travel. A lot of people are shooting slider sights nowadays. So when they shoot those type of sights, they come in and they're like, hey, I can only slide to 50, 60 yards. Well, that's due to the fact that their peep sight is so low, they're anchoring super, super high, and they're getting a bunch of cheek pressure, or they're off the side of their nose.
So talk to me a little bit then about the anchor point.
So anchor point is called an anchor for a reason. Like that's where a lot of things happen. We see a lot of people that have too deep of an anchor, where there's too much face pressure. They're buried into their cheek, their hands shoved into their ear, their thumbs clear back behind their neck, which I know a lot of people shoot like that way. I think Cameron shoots that way.
Cam Haynes.
Yep, Cam shoots with his thumb back there, but he's very consistent and repeatable, and he's done it forever and ever.
But basically, you want to be able to repeat the exact same thing over and over again for consistency.
Yes. Yep. If we can get your jawline, your hand anchored on there, tip of your nose, corner of your mouth, very light pressure, and your head position nice and square, it's going to relieve pressure in your neck. It's just going to be more natural than if you have a peep sight that's too low and you're ducking into it, or it's too high and you're floating. Another thing with that we can talk about is the release length. The release length is going to really determine, one, that falls under draw length. When draw length's wrong, we look at, one, the draw length and check their measurements, and then two, we look at their release, because a lot of times the draw length could be correct, and then the release is making it look long or short. And then same thing with peep location and anchor. If your release is way too long, it floats off back here into la-la land.
Yeah.
If it's too long and you're touching your nose, it's back here. And then if it's too long and you're touching your jaw, now it's way out here.
That's if people choose to shoot an index release.
Yes.
Right? Like
yes.
if you're shooting a thumb button like myself
Yep.
or a hinge or something,
yeah,
then that goes away. But
Yep.
but I have seen it just at the archery range the other day, and and a friend of mine picked up my thumb button. He
Yep.
wanted to try. He's never done before.
Yeah.
Picked it up, put it up to his face, anchored, and realized that his draw length was way too short for the button
Yep.
because his wrist
was super long.
Yeah, because his index release is really long, and he didn't even notice that. What's a problem with when you have a long, when your index finger release is really long around your wrist strap? What
or the bar length?
Or the bar length? Yeah. What kind
so
of
it
problems
just
can
creates
that cause?
this. You have to choose one or the other. Either you're going to touch your nose and the release is floating way back here, or you're going to touch your face and now the string's way out here because the bar length is so long. The distance from the corner of your mouth to the back of your jawline, like that distance isn't very long.
Right.
So you only need that release short enough or long enough to where when it's hooked on, you can just barely get your finger around behind it for safety. And then when you get locked up and you're ready to full draw, just a little curl over it, just that minor movement. So reaching out with your fingertip, trying to fingertip the trigger and punching. We see that a lot because the release is too long. Their fingers are almost straight and they're trying to like reach forward. And as they do the reach, the whole hand moves.
Yeah.
So that's a factor. If they do it the opposite way and they're buried back here, they're floating, and then they can float up and down with their peep sight. So a lot of times when they're too long, find my spacer I dropped, they're going to have issues just repeating. The repeating problem is a big factor. So with draw length from get-go, you got to check that with the release length. Like what release are they going to shoot? Because that's a huge factor. And if it's handheld, if it's wrist strap, that has to be set correct. Absolutely.
Okay. So let's say they have the bow fitted correctly. They have the right draw length and they have the peep sight set up correctly. They're with whatever release they're using, they got an anchor point kind of dialed.
Yep.
Tell me about poundage, because that was another issue you mentioned being a major new archer kind of mistake.
Yeah, so a lot of people these days, and let's be honest, a lot of celebrities, maybe Brian, who shoots 90 pounds on some bows, they see what you guys are doing and what some of these other influencers out there are doing with their poundage, not realizing that you've been shooting a bow for a while, right? This isn't just something that you just started doing. So you've worked your way to certain poundages, right? Yeah. A lot of customers that come through shooting poundage, they just go 70, right? They're just like, I want to shoot 70. They don't know why. That's what they hear. They hear 70 pounds, 80 pounds. Nowadays, 80s are really popular. So they're just going to listen and hear what everyone else is doing, and they're like, I want to shoot that. Well, what happens is when you shoot a bow, your body can only handle so much load at one time. If you're overloaded, not only are you stressing your body while you're trying to aim, but you're also under so much tension that when you try to execute the bow properly, you're not thinking about executing. You're thinking about, I got to get this arrow fired because I can't hold this bow back anymore. So one, it's just safety, drawing the bow back. Two, it's being able to shoot the bow for, multiple reps and not getting fatigued. Poundage can be a multitude of things. Safety, how many arrow reps you can actually fire, repeatability. Aiming is a huge thing with poundage. Huge factor with poundage. And so safety is probably number one, right? We don't want anybody hurting themselves. I don't want anybody sky drawing and shooting into the ceiling, which happens. But sustainability, like, I'll be honest, I probably shoot too much poundage sometimes, to be honest. I shoot my target bows at a lighter poundage, and I feel like it's easier, and then I go to my hunting bow, and I'm like, I need all this poundage because I need to be able to have all this penetration and all this speed and all this stuff, where in reality, shoot as much poundage as you can comfortably. Don't sacrifice your accuracy or your comfortability for, I don't even know if that's a word. I just made it up. But if you're going to be shooting something like that, you got to be comfortable, and you have to make sure that you can sustain it. And what's weird with poundage is a lot of people just want to get to 70 really fast, and they got to shoot this weight because friends, relatives, they see somebody doing it or what have you. You're going to get stronger when you're shooting a bow. It's going to happen.
Well, the new bows are so fast, and if you're a bigger dude, you got a longer draw length, you're going to have the speed you want.
You're blessed already.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's one thing that I think we see with draw length and poundage. That's a big factor.
So touch on one more thing, because I'm really curious about this, and I see this happen often, is let off.
Yes.
Because
pertains to poundage.
Yeah, because I've had bows, and recently I have a bow you're working on where it came stock, basically with what was it, 90% let off.
Yes. Yeah.
And it was terrible.
Steal this tool from him.
Why? What's the issue with having so much let off? What are the downsides? Pros, cons?
So let off is a really...
Because everybody kind of thinks they want as much let off as they can get,
Correct.
Especially a new archer, right?
As a hunter, let's just throw hunters out there and kind of... It's usually generalized to the hunting community, because when you're out hunting, you don't know if that animal is going to sit still. You don't know if you're going to be able to get the shot. Maybe they got to clear an obstacle or brush, or maybe there's another animal in front of them. They got to clear that. So hunters are usually the one that have created the monster with the let-off factor.
Mm-hmm.
I want to have 90% let-off because I can just hold it back all day. Well, that's great for that if you're just going to hold it back all day, but it's not really great for accuracy